Okay, so we're under the Acty to replace the fuel filter. This is the new fuel filter. So it looks like the fuel filter basically sits in a cup, and then it has these two tabs that kind of spring into place and kind of keep it locked in there. So this is on the passenger side of the Acty, or the left side of the Acty. This cavity here is normally where the spare tire sits. I have removed that because I actually don't have, I'm driving around without a spare. And here is the fuel pump. Now the fuel pump is mounted onto this bracket. It has a bushing here and a bushing on this side. I removed those two bolts to get the pump out of the way. And I'm going to disconnect this electrical connector. Then I'm going to crank over the engine. Because I don't know where the fuel pump relay or fuse is for this car, I'm going to just disconnect the fuel pump and then turn the crank the pickup over a couple of times, and hopefully that'll depressurize the fuel system. And then I should be able to disconnect the fuel lines, and right there is the fuel filter. You can see it sitting in a little cup. So I'm gonna do that next.
Ryan Little.
So this fuel filter is kicking my ass. I tried to disconnect the fuel pump connector, electrical connector, but it's just not budging. I'm afraid to break it, so I don't want to keep trying. Now I'm trying to get the fuel filter off, and there's no easy access to those tabs. So it's an easy connection the way it's held on in there, but it's very hard to get access to it because it's tucked underneath, up above the fuel tank. So I'm just gonna keep at it, and I'm sure eventually you'll get tired and quit, give up on me. All right. Okay, so I got the fuel filter off. I had to break one of the tabs that there's no access to. This is the tab that's right up against the bracket that holds the fuel pump. This one I had to get right underneath, and I used a little flathead screwdriver to pry this in, and then I was able to pop it out. It kind of fought me every step of the way, including the hose clamps. Never had to deal with these before, but they're basically just a wire, and I thought that I could, by squeezing it together, give me enough flex to get them out, but it didn't work, so I had to basically use my pliers and just pull them out. And I replaced them with this style, which basically you squeeze for a larger diameter and then you let go, and it's a much more positive attachment than that, and probably there's a lot less damage to the hose as well. So I cranked it over, started right up, so there wasn't even gaps in the fuel, which I thought maybe you would feel it, but there's no fuel leaks. So next step is the air filter. Just also wanted to share, that's the part number for the fuel filter. It looks like it's the same filter that's used for not only the HA4, which is what I have, but also the 3 and the 5, as well as whatever GA2, whatever these engines here are. I am going to see if I could Google the part number, this AY505 number, just to see if I get any cross-reference parts, and maybe there's another Honda vehicle or product that uses this fuel filter, and then we don't have to go crazy trying to source these Acty parts. All right. Okay, here's the air filter. It's a World Partner. That's the part number. You guys could try to cross-reference that maybe against other products. Almost looks like the air filter that goes in my Maserati, which is kind of funny. But okay, to replace the air filter, it's actually right behind here. It's this black box right here. It has two spring clamps and it should come right out. Okay, so we had some issues with the air filter too. So this is the original one that was on there, and you can see it's got this rubber gasket that kind of wraps around and in. It's got a very low profile. The new filter had a foam gasket all the way around, and it was about twice as thick as this one. And what that did was, there's a threaded stud that comes out of the air filter box, and then this is actually part of the air filter here, and then there's a wing nut that secures it in place. Well, I had to remove this to compensate for the extra thickness of the gasket, or else I wouldn't have enough thread sticking out to get the wing nut going. I did remove the rubber piece that's in here from inside this metal piece. So I did have I do have a rubber gasket, so this hole is still airtight with the wing nut in there, so it shouldn't have any water or whatever get in there. But I did have to modify it slightly, so that was kind of a pain. You shouldn't have to do that, but it looks like they probably use this filter for several vehicles, and they just use this, they change this piece out. But it was a lot easier to do that than to try to remove the gasket and replace it with something else. I decided to give the air filter cover just a touch of paint, because it had a lot of overspray from when I painted the body, so it was all speckled and white. I used a black trim and bumper paint from Rust-Oleum, and this is gonna go back on now. Okay, so line up the cover to the housing and secure all the 3 snaps. And you're all set. So we could check this one off the to-do list. Thanks for watching.
Ryan Little.